of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. Thank you for coming. Sorry about the raspy voice. I had some misbehaving children before we came in. So the first item tonight is a meeting with Todd Bard again. This might be his 7th or 8th or 12th time coming, but this item was continued from our last meeting. The Board of Selectmen wished to have additional time to consider and discuss the options and to provide an opportunity for the Hampshire Regional School Committee representatives to be present and share information on this project. I did watch from home, so I heard the conversation. I spoke to Superintendent Jurgensen the other day regarding this issue, and it seems as though the Hampshire Regional School Committee doesn't really have any other important or information to add that we haven't already considered. I think they're just as stuck as to what to do with this as we are, and so I told him I didn't think it necessary, given that information, that someone from the school committee come tonight. So Mr. Bard, if you'd like to come to the podium once again, we'd be happy to talk to you.
At least somebody wants to talk to me. Not many, but there's some. And I had a really good conversation with Dr. Jurgensen earlier today. I'm going out to visit with them and kind of explain what the solar project is again and what the difference is between community solar, which they had a presentation on, which Dr. Jurgensen said may save them money, may not save them money, where this is going to save them money. Mm-hmm. So, and they still have the same issue with the 20-year contract. And I said, everybody has it. It's something we all have to deal with. And I've never done a contract less than 20 years. So I'd love to get them. Developers just aren't going to.
So how many people have signed on, and how many people have you talked to that have said, forget it?
Nobody's have said forget it, but now the towns that are in are the town of Easthampton, or city of Easthampton, the town of Deerfield, Gateway Regional has signed their contracts, Amherst Pelham Regional Schools have signed their contracts, Longmeadow has the contract, should be signing. The school board approved it, so the school board wants the 1.4 million kilowatt hours. That's kind of the remainder, and then it's just you and Hampshire Regional are the last two off-takers, potential off-takers. So I didn't really talk to a lot of other ones, because you know, when I say to somebody that they're your credits until you say no, unless it's, you know, getting delayed and delayed and delayed, and ultimately. So there is an off-taker that wants these credits. If you and or Hampshire Regional don't want them, that I will go to them and engage them. But they won't go until you guys say no, until Hampshire Regional.
Is there just one other person knocking on your door for those credits, or is there a bunch of people?
No, there's a ton. And so the interesting piece now, that Eversource had a lot of net metering credits available, it's now getting squeezed in Eversource territory. And so once that cap is completed in Eversource, no more solar project can get built in, you know, Wamiko territory. Now it's Eversource. So that's a major concern.
So if something happens in the next 20 years that we're in this contract that would cause an off-taker to say, you know what, this is really not a good idea, what happens then?
Well, you could always break the contract. It doesn't mean the lawyer for the solar investor owner isn't going to pursue litigation against you, but ultimately you can get out of the contract. Why would you? Unless power goes to 5 cents. That would be probably the only reason you'd want to go out.
And that probably won't
the likelihood of power going to 5 cents is very, very minimal. That's why I like the floors to be as low as possible, and 7.5 cent floor in Wamiko territory is the lowest that I've gotten.
And so then my last question is, if for some reason the town of Southampton decided to build their own solar field somewhere, and we were able to save more money that way than we were with this contract, can we sell our credits?
Yep. You can transfer those credits. So, and I would step in, wouldn't need to be paid again, and find another off-taker to transfer those credits out. And so I do that with other developers too, to say, okay, if I can help, like the School of Tantascwa, they have now 2 projects that I've gotten them, and we're going to look to do carports on their school parking lot. And if it makes more sense for them to take the power credits off of that project, I will then help them transfer credits to somebody else and let them get out of that contract, and the new off-taker will take over that power.
Okay.
But yeah, there's always a transfer of credits twice a year on every solar contract.
Yeah, I remember that part. Okay.
So if it is advantageous for your landfill or for solar to be put on a school property or a municipal building, then absolutely I'd want to be engaged in that process. I'm not going to charge you for it. And to say, does it make sense to take the power from that project? If it does, let's do it, and let's call the solar developer up and say, hey, can we transfer the credits to some other school district or other town that doesn't have net metering credits? Because they're going to be valuable, because the incentives are slowly getting taken away.
And so I know I said I had no more questions, but what's the potential savings for us, a dollar amount,
I think,
10, 12 grand or something?
per year?
Was it about 10,000 a year or so?
yeah, I think it was a little north of that. Hold on. Yeah, it's a little over $11,000 a year,
Okay.
using the current rates, and those fluctuate through Eversource rates. So they lock in for 6 months, and then they change whether they go up or down the next 6 months.
Okay.
And that's publicized right on their website. So you don't have to believe the developer what rates they're getting. It's right on Eversource's website.
Okay. And then what happens if you have, like, you have this solar panel, what if one of them goes bad? What if there's something that happens? Who's responsible for those?
The owner investor.
Not
So,
us.
no.
We only get the credit off the
Yep.
solar.
That's the
No
one great
maintenance
thing.
or anything like that.
Yeah, that's one thing great about solar credits, is you don't have to worry about the maintenance, operation, whether the roof is leaking and solar is on that school building and you have to fix that potential problem. You don't have to worry about anything other than getting credits. Now, you want to make sure that the developer fixes that problem, because you want those credits, because the only way you can save money is if you get the credits. But he's incentivized, because if it's not working, he's not making any money.
Right.
So whether it's one panel or 50 panels, he wants those panels plugged back in and corrected so he can actually get the revenue.
And the cost to us as a town is zero for these credits?
Yes.
Well,
Yep.
okay.
Other than if you wanted a lawyer to review the current contract, that whether Easthampton signed or Gateway signed. Yes, that'd be the only cost.
What's that?
I think I have all my questions answered.
Okay, a couple questions. You were talking about on a roof and, penetrating the roof and all that, but this is going to be in a field,
Yep.
right? Okay, so there's no issues there. I was just reading an article last week or so at the federal level that's trying to put through legislation that for net metering, it's going to be at a wholesale cost versus a retail cost where it is now.
Right.
And they might make it retroactive, which if we sign this and it's at a retail, it would go down to wholesale, so our savings would go like that? Can you
Yes.
tell me about
Yeah,
that?
and so, it's a great point. Right now, you get retail rates. If the federal government goes to a wholesale rate contract, that would crush every contract out there. So the chance of that happening is going to be very, very hard to get through, because every city and town that has a contract would then be upside down and losing money, and they would go back to the state and federal government to say, how do we get out of these contracts? You encouraged us to sign them and promote clean energy. Now you're passing legislation that actually is going to make us lose money. So you'd be in the same boat as everybody else.
But that sounds
Likelihood of
like-
that happening, I don't think is very good.
It reminds me of unfunded
mandates.
mandates. You have to do this, but we're not paying it. So, I mean, I don't think it's impossible, but there seems to
No,
be
no,
some talk
absolutely.
going out there on that.
At least in Massachusetts, every time they've come out with a different program, they've grandfathered the existing program.
So far, yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So you would be grandfathered in this program statewide, federal,
Yeah.
yeah, who knows?
So we don't know. And I was just talking to some folks where I work who do the energy there, and they're saying that there's some predictions that it's going to go down like 6.5 cents a kilowatt hour this summer.
So that'll just be the supply, so then all the other charges that WMECO charges go on top of that.
So what do you think, if it was down at the supply at 6.5, it would be for the total?
That should be close to like 9 cents.
So it's still not going to hit our
Still,
floor.
right, still, and that's why I want that floor to be as low as
7.5.
possible. So the city of Pittsfield, who I was just with 2 weeks ago, they were presented a community solar project, so it's about 6 megawatts, so they want them to take half the project.
Okay.
Their offer was 12.5% discount, taking 4.5 million kilowatt hours. The floor is 8.25 cents.
Okay.
And they're one of the communities that say, if Hampshire Regional doesn't want, or Southampton doesn't want, we'll take the 1.5 million, because it's far better deal than what they had gotten proposed.
So I guess my two concerns are 20 years, and if the federal mandate or changes in the legislation are there, and we're risking that for $11,000 on a $15 million budget. Is that a good gamble, I guess is my question.
Charlie?
Fine.
Okay, so how do you want to proceed? I think tonight's decision night. We can't ask Mr. Bard to come back again.
I can,
You
but
can, but, you know, it's decision time, I think.
Can I, if you don't mind me pushing a little,
Please do.
can we get your opinion a little more? Or you want to make a motion that, I'll make a motion in a second and then we'll talk about it? I just want to make sure all three opinions are out there.
I have the same concerns that you do. 20 years is a long time, and, you know, the mandates from the federal government make me nervous, but,
If we're saying 60, 70,000, I go, whoa, you know.
right?
Well, I personally see that we need to move forward with this. I've been watching this for a number of years in its development, watching the other communities in that, and I think this is a positive approach. Trying to play the game of what the federal government's going to do is exactly that, a game. You're never going to know.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be best interest of the town to move forward with signing contracts on this.
Are you making a motion?
I move that the town move forward with the process to sign the contracts to lock this in.
Is there a second?
Nope.
Can I second?
You can if you like.
Second. Further discussion?
Yeah, I mean, my concern's 20 years for risking $11,000 on a $15 million budget. To me, it's not a good gamble. It's kind of one of those Las Vegas bets. That's my opinion. I wouldn't risk my all-in on 20 years for $11,000. If that $11,000 is that critical, I think we can find ways to conserve energy in our buildings rather than take a chance, because we're in. We can breach the
My understanding
contract.
is this is $11,000 a year.
Correct.
So 11,000 over 20 years is $220,000.
Right, if nothing happens along the way. But I think we've got to look at it year upon year. If we're looking for a savings of $11,000, are there better ways to find it without committing to something for 20 years? That's how I'm looking at it. I mean, if you guys can differ, that's fine.
Sorry. Can you hear me now?
I mean, to that point, I did Peter Sam's contract in Wachusett and Ralph Mahar, and Peter Sam is saving $3,000 a year, small little school district,
Yeah.
and they wanted it, and they signed a 20-year contract.
Has anybody had a contract they're halfway through yet? Or is this all
No, so
very new?
this came out in really, in the larger volume size projects in 2011. So, you know, there's not a lot of data out there, but I can tell you, my largest client, Worcester State University, has 2 projects from me, and I have multiple clients now that have 2 projects, and now a potential client that's going to take 3 projects from me, and Worcester State's saving $500,000 a year. Now, to your point, it's a huge amount of money, but they're in the same predicament. If it goes to wholesale, now they theoretically could lose a lot more than what you could lose.
Sure.
So they invest, and that's a state college. And I did Quid Sangamon Communities College contract. That's 20 years. UMass Memorial. If it goes upside down, I mean, UMass Amherst and the 5 colleges, they've signed, I think, don't quote me, 40 to 50 megawatts of PPAs for solar credits, all 20-year contracts.
Correct.
State college.
That I know.
Right. So to that point,
But
if
the
they did
savings
it,
potential,
but it doesn't matter. It's all relative.
yeah.
Whether they're saving 10 million a year or 10,000, if it goes upside down, their loss is going to be
If
far
it goes
greater.
upside down, I'm taking away that federal changes if it goes through, because it may go through even before we sign it, who knows? But
Right.
if that doesn't go through, I'm just still looking at 11,000 in 20 years.
Unfair question for Heather.
Go ahead.
I mean unfair because we didn't bring this up, but our approach to a green community, is that, do you know, going to affect us one way or the other as we try to move forward with the establishing our program with the state relative to,
You mean if we were to sign on with the net metering solar credits?
yeah,
I don't know. I remembered that the Green Energy Program, Green Communities
Yeah,
Program has
5.
5 facets. One of them includes a plan of how over the next 5 years, we're going to save 20% of our energy bills. So maybe Todd can answer this one from what he's seen with other communities. Are any of the communities you're working with green communities? And as such, have they counted these savings in their energy use as part of this 20%?
Yes, actually, and I would encourage you to talk to Danny Knapik, who's actually the Green Community Director, and he's a friend of mine, I grew up with him. They encourage all communities to do solar and net metering credits, whether it's inside your own community or hosting or taking credits from outside the community. So that's a big push because it's clean energy. That's what the green communities are about, is whether you can host them or build them inside your community or outside receiving the net metering credits. Because that's really why green communities got started, was for clean energy and trying to reduce your consumption. I would encourage you, it was a great point that you brought to the table, is reduce your consumption. But what's left over, you still have to purchase, so that 11,000 savings goes to your bottom line. And that should be really something that the facility department in Southampton should be looking at, whether it's LED lighting, retrofitting boilers, all that kind of stuff. And then the difference between what you're using and the savings goes directly to you guys, to use for whatever, whether it's teacher payment offsets or supplies or materials, it doesn't matter. Green Communities doesn't mandate what you use the savings for.
I guess it's sad that we have a $15 million budget and 11,000 is important to us, because it is.
It is.
It is, yeah, no doubt about it, yeah. But on that budget, it shouldn't be, you know what I mean?
Well,
That's how tight everything is.
Yeah, and that's really why a lot of communities now want more net metering credits, because really I shouldn't say no, but very little legal cost to get these savings that other communities are doing and reaping huge discounts for. And your discount is the highest 20% discount I've gotten for any community in Eversource territory.
Has legal looked at this agreement?
I don't think
We
so.
have not said anything to legal. We don't generally invest in legal funds until the board and the town wish to pursue an item, so that we do not frivolously spend our legal budget down.
Thanks for the editorial.
Like I had spoken to Heather, takes Easthampton's contract that's been approved, or Gateways, and then you spend even less money on your legal counsel.
Has anybody ever put a caveat in there or an amendment to it that will allow them to cancel the contract with certain stipulations if something happens?
One private company did that and said they would do a termination clause after year 6, but you wouldn't want to pay that penalty.
So there was a hefty penalty.
It was $1 million to get out of the contract. So
We'd never get that savings.
No.
yeah. And it was just, they didn't know if the company was going to be around, and so they just wanted some protection. Developer gave it to them because, hey, it's $1 million. We'll take the $1 million. It was far and away more than what the project was actually worth.
That's not really a termination clause.
No,
it's a
but they just
suicide
said, hey, by
clause,
the
yeah.
way, if we did close this facility, could we get out?
Right.
And they said, sure, and here's the payment.
So do we want to take a risk? Money versus term?
For what it's worth, if it was my school in my town, and I live in Agawam, and I did Agawam's project, I would sign and take the savings.
So my question, I guess, for the board is, where do you intend to use the credits? You know, do you intend to use the credits at town hall? Do you intend to use them at the school? Do you intend to use them at the police department? What's your first thought? Because for me, if we're going to intend to use the credits at the school, that means you could give more money to the school, kind of. And that's always somewhere that we struggle. I mean, we struggle everywhere, but trying to meet net school spending every year is something that we have a problem with. So, you know, that needs to be part of the conversation. If you're planning to, you know, use the credits at town hall and the police department, well, then, you know, I'm not so sure.
Let's say hypothetically the budget, 50% of the budget is the school. So why not 50% of the credits go to the school, 50% goes to the regional general?
How many buildings can you use them on?
Any.
Any, as many as you want. You
You
can
typically
spread
want to
them
go
out.
after the larger users. It's just
Right.
easier from a counting standpoint.
Okay.
But it doesn't matter. You can be down to 0.1% allocation, and it can go to any
But
account.
if you want it to mean something, you have to put a substantial
Yeah,
amount in
you-
one place or another.
Yeah. It can go to the streetlights account, it can go to the schools, it can go to the town hall, police,
Or go-
wherever.
go into
Or a
general
combination,
fund.
or general fund, it doesn't matter, I mean,
Yeah.
and typically if the town is paying the school's bills, general fund probably makes more sense anyways.
Yeah.
You know,
It's going to get lost in the budget real quick. And your example of the schools being 50%, I don't think this should include Hampshire Regional, because they have their own projects. This should be Norris.
No,
and-
Norris, yes.
Right, so that's a smaller amount,
Right.
much smaller amount.
Liz, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Todd, is this going to mean we're going to get a third set of bills? Because
You will
my
get-
assistant might quit if she gets a third set of
I know, we're
electricity
still
bills
trying to
every
correct
month.
that. That's been a nightmare on that. So you will get one extra electronic invoice. So you're
Okay.
going to get credits that go on your bill to pay your Eversource costs, and then you will get electronic invoice saying, okay, let's say we paid $10,000 of credits, and it's 20% discount, pay us $8,000.
Okay.
That's the developer. That's theoretically what the developer is going to invoice you is
Okay.
that 20% discount. So yes, you're going to get one extra bill and pay one extra bill. And it could all be electronic. It depends on what you want. Long Meadow wants it by check. So the contract states a wire, and Long Meadow said, well, we just want to pay by check, and the developer's fine with it. It's what your preference is.
So we're cutting a separate check, is that what you're saying?
Oh, I have no care in the world as to how many checks we send. I have a care in the world as to how many invoices we get. Because right now, what's happening is we're getting one GDF Suez per meter, and some buildings, like ours, have 3 meters. So I'm getting a bill for $5.92, $68, and $300 and something dollars just for this building. All of our other buildings are the same way. My poor assistant cannot handle another set.
A
She
question.
will leave me.
When we do the safety complex, would that be a candidate to put a solar project on top of it?
I think it depends on where it would be, but I think what my understanding is from Todd saying with other communities is there's no cap to, provided that the state cap hasn't been met, or the Eversource cap, that come like 5 years from now, should another project open up and we have the ability to use more credits, that we could sign on for an additional project.
Yeah, and so if you do build a complex, I would highly encourage putting solar on it and taking the solar internally and using them versus having net metering credits. So you just take the power, so it's what's called behind the meter.
Yeah.
So you just push the meter theoretically goes backwards. And so you use the consumption. What you don't use would then go on to one of your other accounts. And so that could be net metered, but you can't do more than a third under current guidelines.
Okay, so if we got real efficient, put a couple solar fields up somewhere, is there a possibility that we'd have more solar being generated than we can possibly take advantage of, and we wouldn't get a credit after a certain point because we're pushing too much back in?
No, so you could take all the power, and you would set that up prematurely, so you'd say, okay, how much power can we take from this one solar system? And then you would take that, and if you wanted to build a second one, you could build that and then just net meter it to somebody else. Wouldn't have to take all the credits off of that one. Or we can transfer the existing credits from this project, if you take them, to somebody else, and then you take all the credits from the projects that are in Southampton. So you kind of have the advantage of picking and choosing, where if you do nothing today and you look to the future and the cap is maxed out, now you have limited options. And then the incentives are going to be less. I mean, there's a really big pushback from the utility companies and the lobbyists to remove the retail rates and try to push closer to a wholesale rate. And if that happens, then your savings, no matter if you own the system in the town of Southampton or don't, are going to be less than that 11,000.
When you say really big push, how big?
Well, the vote solar people that are, and I'm in the industry, is to keep the incentives the way they are. So small towns can save 11,000 versus maybe not saving a lot. So what you're going to have for a decision is, well, we don't even want to do it then. And so that's the answer we don't want. We want you to do it, and the incentive is there to do it because 11,000 is a good chunk of money, for the amount of solar that you're taking, And so we think we have enough pressure on the politicians to do the right thing and not listen to the utility companies who only talk about costs but not the benefits. But yet when they talk about, the high transmission lines, it's all about the benefit, They don't want to talk about the billion-dollar cost it is to take transmission lines from Canada to come to Massachusetts. And so finally, the politicians are listening to say, okay, now we get it. And so solar is a huge benefit. In fact, in just the article that's just the other day, talks about all the benefits of solar, not the costs.
Okay.
I think one of the other issues is 20 years, I'm not going to be here. Not going to be here. Hopefully I'm here, but I'm not here. So I don't want anybody to think I'm kicking the bucket here. But so we're burdening, saddling, or leaving a positive legacy, depending on how you look at it, for 20 years. So I still have an issue with the 11,000 versus 20 years, but that's me. You guys can override me.
Well, seeing that I have a coupon binder at home, and then we're forever battling about budgets, I think I'm willing to take the chance on $11,000 savings.
Okay.
So is there any other discussion? Motion on the floor to proceed with signing the contract for the solar net metering credits. Charlie made the motion, John seconded for discussion. All those in favor?
You second it.
Oh, I second it, sorry. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Opposed?
So it passes 2-1. So we can move forward now with the
Okay.
contract? What does that mean for us? What's the next step?
I will get with Heather tomorrow and then get a contract from Lake Street Development. And the one that Easthampton signed or Gateway, so it doesn't matter. I think they're both identical. I don't read through them. It's not what I'm good at. So I'll send that over to Heather, and then your legal counsel, whoever it may be, can look at that, see if there's any red flags that come up to them, and then start the conversation and get moving,
Very good.
you know.
Okay.
And then hopefully, you know, if Hampshire Regional can make a decision quickly too. I mean, the project's ready to go, has all the permits. And so if they can get everything done in the next 30 days, they'll start construction right away. And so within 5-6 months, you guys will start getting credits and start getting the savings.
Very good.
Just clarification, motion is to proceed. If something comes up with the contract that's unpalatable, we'll come back
If the town
here.
attorney comes back and says, whoa,
Right.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay.
Yep, so-
Thank you so much for
You're
your
welcome.
time.
Appreciate
Thank you
it.
so much.
Have a great night. Next, we have Heather.
Hi.
Hi.
All right, first update, safe routes to school. I'm going to give you some numbers here. 12 is the number of abutters we have on this project. 4, the number of certificates of donation that have already been returned. 2, the number of abutters still to meet with. 7, the number of businesses and corporations involved. We are moving items in this project that we've talked to the state and also the engineer about. As far as who picks up the cost for moving the items, it just depends on the item. Certain things like small signs on properties that are near the road where the sidewalk is going to go, it's going to be something the town picks up, which we believe actually can be accomplished through the highway department workers, actually physically moving a sign. Few of the other items we're not sure about, and we're still looking at details. Some of the things we thought we might have to move, we actually don't because they've modified the plans. So we're working on going back to the abutters that we've already met with to update them with any of their concerns or questions they had pertaining to various parts of their property so that they can be more secure and confident moving forward. We're hoping to get the revised plans back from the engineer by March. And we are working to respond to all the owners with the responses we got, and also to follow up on any that have outstanding certificates of donations. Yes, ma'am?
So you said there's 12 abutters.
Yes.
But your numbers equal 13.
Well, 12, 13. What ends up happening is that 7 could overlap,
Okay.
and I believe it does, at least twice in this case.
Okay. And at the last meeting, there was a comment made about talking to the Safe Routes to School about including the sidewalk where the cemetery is. Was that ever discussed afterwards?
It's not part of their scope of this project.
Okay. And what's included in the revised plans, other than, is there?
It will move things. It will be much clearer as to whether certain fences are going to be moved. It talks
Not
specifically.
the
if you-
path of the sidewalk, just pertaining to things that may or
It just
may not
pertains to the
move.
specific pieces of each abutter's property. So
Okay.
it might say, you know, we're going to trim half these hedges, but leave half of them, or we believe we can retain this tree, or we have to remove this tree, et cetera.
Got it. Okay.
Any other questions on safe routes to school? Okay. Next item we have is budgeting. We're working on the basic numbers now. The auditors came the past week, and they actually gave a couple recommendations for revisions of how we have our revenue from last year. They actually wanted us to include the state assessments on the revenue sheet as a negative, as opposed to putting it later on as the expenses and then going back and adding the money coming in. Vicky's in the process of adding that. She did it for FY17's projected, but she has not gone back for FY16, FY15. So we're going to wait on those to share them with others, because people might get very panicky if they see that we're $100,000 different, and we're not. It's just we're trying to keep apples to apples here. Couple other differences right now. We're still waiting on the transfer and the water enterprise budgets. Both of those are going to be due on February 26th. So once we get those in, we should have a better idea of how much indirect cost. One of the first things that's come up so far is the revenue side for the water department is actually less than what it was in past years. And that is simply they're accounting for more of their specific costs, and they're also looking at not using as much retained earnings as they had in the past. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to directly impact our indirect costs a large amount. It just means that they're trying to look at their budget more conservatively. Other things on the budget. On this coming Monday night, we actually meet with one of the first large departments, the police department. They are working on finalizing the budget. Mike Goyette has been working very hard with Donna and Vicky to make sure the numbers are accurate and up to date. This is his first big budget, so everyone's looking forward to the new process. And he accordingly has asked for an extension to have additional time to work on it. One of the budgets that I still have missing in action is the Board of Health's. Have not received it yet. It was due on January 5th. I would tell you that the moderator's budget due date has come and gone, but for $100, I wasn't too concerned about following up at this time.
Do you know if they've discussed it at the Board of Health, or where it is?
It's my understanding, unfortunately, upon looking for copies of past minutes to see where they stand, my attempt has failed because there are no minutes that are currently posted or submitted to the town clerk's office for approximately the past 9 months plus, to the best of my knowledge.
And the ruling on that is supposed to be, they're supposed to be submitted and posted within what period of time for any?
I think they have to be submitted within a reasonable period of time, but upon questioning of requests for minutes, as it's even been explained to me numerous times, is any draft scribble or any form of minutes needs to be available for public inspection.
I mean, we like to go to them too on these different boards and see what's going on. So is there something we can do to request it and put any kind of?
It has been brought to the attention of the town clerk on numerous occasions. She has submitted emails, to the best of my understanding, and communications to the Board of Health that they are currently in violation, and that's as far as it has gone. We have not filed a public records request with ourselves, and we have not filed a complaint with ourselves.
Go ahead.
Could I make a motion that we send a memo to the Board of Health requesting their minutes for the last 3 months?
3 or 9?
Well, there's none up there for at least
There's
9.
none up there for at least 9.
I understand that, but at least the last 3 months, at least find out what happened in the last 3 months.
Well,
I guess I disagree with the motion, would like to see the minutes going back at least 9 months.
yeah.
Then you want to amend the motion?
You would have to amend it. There's no second yet.
I have to amend it?
Well, there's
Well,
no
there's
second.
no second,
So
so
there's no
somebody
real
can make a
motion.
new motion, or you can amend your
I amend it
motion.
to 9 months.
So there's a motion on the floor by Charlie to send a memo from the Board of Selectmen requesting the minutes from the Board of Health for the last 9 months.
I'll second that, and also like to let them know that they need to post it in a public place per the.
I don't think, is it a law that they have to be posted on the website, or just that they need to be filed with the town clerk?
They have to be in existence.
Well, exactly, but I mean.
They have to be
John's point-
available for the
to-
public.
To John's point, right, in the clerk's office.
So it could
But
be
that
the-
doesn't necessarily, although most boards and committees post them on the website,
If they
I
at
don't
least,
think it's a law that they post them on the website. They just have to be filed with the
if
clerk.
they at least have them in the clerk's office, she can physically post them herself on the website. But
Right.
we have to have,
But we have
she
to have
has to have
something
something
to
to
post.
post.
So they have to comply and get them to the clerk's
Yes.
office, and then we can ask the clerk to post them.
Post them to the website.
Could I amend the motion to also say that we'll request these within the next 30 days, 15 days? Pick a number.
15 days?
Well, what's a public records request, 10 days?
10 days, you need a response. And the response may be, we're working on it.
But that's if it was an official public records
I'm just,
request.
for a
Not
time
doing
frame
it.
is all. 15 days is fine.
All right, 15 days.
So the motion was amended by Charlie to reflect the minutes to be turned over to Board of Selectmen in the next 15 days.
Town clerk.
Town clerk,
yes.
sorry.
And I know it's going to get too complicated. Can we also add to the motion that as these are forwarded to the town clerk, any board meeting minutes, that she posts them to our website so they're available?
No, I wouldn't do that.
All right.
Let's do it in baby steps.
Let's
it
get one thing at a time.
Okay. I just hate to revisit it 14 times, but,
Well, if they
We're
don't,
really good at revisiting things
well,
14 times.
we shouldn't be.
but if they don't submit it in the 15 days, then we're probably going to be looking at the public record laws.
Right, okay, so there's a motion on the floor made by Charlie to send a memo to the Board of Health requesting the minutes of the Board of Health meetings for the last 9 months, and that they be submitted to the town clerk's office within 15 days. Does that sound about right? Is there a second?
I seconded it.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye. Thanks, Heather.
Are you done?
So-
She's not done.
Oh,
No, just for
thanks for
that part.
dismissing me, but
No, just for that part.
So just an update, and I think I kept the board apprised of this. So last week, after the holiday on Tuesday, the roads are icy. I talked to Randall, as I always do, whenever there's any question of weather. He asked for a couple hours in order to get the roads clear and also to make sure that the parking lot and the sidewalks that lead up to Town Hall were safe. So he asked to keep the Town Hall closed until noon. We did send out a code red message. Some people were upset it was earlier than normal, and I apologize for that. I should have waited till 8, but I was sending it from home on my computer after I had reset my password and was desperately trying to get the message out. My biggest concern on snowstorms like that or ice storms is anyone of the elderly group. You know, people get up early in the morning, they turn on the news initially, everything looks good, there's no cancellations. They start their day, and before you know it, 8 o'clock comes, they're in the car, and the roads are bad. So that was really my target group. Code Red was the best way to get it out to everybody. At the same time, some people happy, some people aren't happy. I don't think I'm going to please everyone no matter what. Other people questioned why things weren't on the news stations. Unfortunately, this is a one-woman show when it comes to posting things, and there's 5 different stations. Each one has a different phone number, a different code, a different password, and a different series of
So we'll
events.
do our best to get it on the news and out to people. Is
Well,
the
Can we just select one station? like
I guess I'm
10 or 40?
just happy to either go with one or to simply go with Code Red, but I can honestly tell you that in the morning when I'm trying to consult with Randall, talk to the police department, keep an eye on the weather, and monitor the roads myself, I can't do it.
Is
I
there
just can't do
somebody
it
else
all.
that can call channel, pick a channel, 22, 40? Can Randall call?
I think Randall's on the road. Usually we're talking and he's on speakerphone yelling at me on the side of the car.
I mean, it's just a phone call, right? Can you ask the Board of Selectmen chair, whoever that is at that point, to make the phone call? I mean, I watched the news and thought, oh, it's not on there, you know, like,
That's fine, as long as you want to take that on for now.
so if you make that decision and let me know for now, then, and give me the phone number, I will call. Pick a channel. Pick one, so
I
at
think
least it's on TV.
40 is the more common, that's my opinion.
Anybody else in the audience have a preference?
Oh, I thought you were volunteering to do it.
I'm happy to make the phone call. Yeah,
So just see me before you leave, Liz, I'll give you the passwords.
okay.
Well, one thing, when I got the call, I got this male voice and said, "Hello, this is Heather calling." I went, well, "This isn't Heather."
Well, you got a different voicemail. One thing we do use Code Red for that's actually proven to be very helpful is we alert all town hall employees. So we have them all in the same system. There's about 15 or 20 different people, and I simply make 2 clicks of the mouse, hit go, and all 20 people get a phone call.
Good.
So we also have an interesting feature on Code Red that you can actually require confirmation. So Randall and I have talked about this a little bit as an option too, where you can actually have everyone's phone go out at the same time, and you can hit 1 or 2, whatever number to confirm, and you can even have a required number if you want, to have a mandated number of people to actually confirm before it stops calling people. So it's an interesting feature. So anyway, just to wrap up the rest of that day so folks are aware, around 2 o'clock we actually had 2 major power surges at Town Hall, and then the power went completely out. At which point we got notification, and we had someone who came in, and there was a line that was down, and a terminal had one of those transformers, thank you, terminal sounded right to me. Transformers exploded, what have you. So the police were on scene, they called, they talked to the police chief, he said, you know, on average, these things usually take about 2 hours to fix, but they're not on scene yet, so we waited a little while longer. It was still cold here, we were dropping temperature, we went down about 10 degrees within like 20 minutes, and it was literally pitch black in most of the rooms because a lot of the emergency lights did not affect people and everyone's computer was off. So after about 15 minutes, I
Did the
talked to
emergency
Randall.
lights go on?
Oh, well, we had a few in here, and I think one was in the treasurer's office where she has all the windows open anyway. She has nice light, and her poor
But
assistant.
did they go on, is my question.
When?
Did
Oh,
they?
yeah.
They
yeah,
all went
absolutely.
on?
The emergency lights
Okay.
went on, but they're not everywhere. They're like
Right.
select.
I just wanted to know if they went on.
Like this room had 2 or 3 lights that come on.
Okay, so they worked.
They worked.
They did
That's
work,
what I wanted to know.
yes. So ultimately, we sent everyone home. All of the hourly employees, the moment the last person left the parking lot, our power came back on for a good hour or so, and then we lost power again. So just to let you know, we do try to be very cautious of these decisions, and we don't take these things lightly, and they just work out the way they're going to work out anyway. Last 2 things on here. Community Compact Cabinet, the piece with the state, we did the signing, I don't know, Charlie, last week, the week before, I'm not actually even sure at this point.
2 Thursdays ago.
Everything's merging together. So the first project is the government structure and charter study that is going to be done by Community Paradigm Associates. That is a $20,000 contract funded by the state. We have the paperwork on that one. We'll begin signing everything, getting it back, and hopefully start rolling next week. The next project is the Fire Operational Organizational Study, and that's been awarded to the Carlson Group. That is a contract in the amount of $11,500. And that one is at the state now. We're just waiting for the contract information.
How long does that
We
one
should have
take?
that one back by March 31st.
By March
That was a requirement.
31st.
That's why we didn't have a lot of bidders on it, because we had a very tight time frame of when we wanted things back. The last one is the HR wage and classification. That's being done by DIJ Consultant Services in the amount of $4,500.
Okay.
And that one, again, is on its way to the state. We're waiting for the contractual information back. Any questions on those 3 pieces?
Nope.
Okay. The last meeting, the board had discussed about the tree out front and voted to have it taken down. I did follow up with Randall. He said that they'll get to it in the spring or earlier if it stays warm enough. The wood actually goes to the back of the transfer station, where they, once or twice a year, break all the wood into wood chips with a machine. And as far as signs go for the building, there was a lot of concern about having a sign to instruct folks of where to park and where to enter the building for town hall. Randall's working on constructing such a sign or purchasing such a sign. We also talked about, on the topic of signage, that we need a sign in front of the police station that says police, and also a sign that says something towards the notion of fire out in front of our front yard, not to declare that there is a fire, but to declare where the fire department is. Other than that, one more thing I have to mention, because we've got lots of concerns and questions on it in my office this week. The Board of Health appears to have furloughed their employees. We did not get any official notice of this. It was simply a sign on the door. And they also closed their box for their sharps containers. So we've got numerous calls. Folks needed things for their taxes. Folks needed inspection records, health inspections, etc. And there was no one to refer them to other than the chair of the Board of Health.
So you weren't even notified to
Was
send
not
it?
officially notified.
I mean, this is ridiculous.
Who So the Board of Health directed themselves to furlough?
I would
mean,
check the
I guess I didn't
minutes.
realize there was a shortage in the Board of Health wage line, other than the request that was denied, but they were budgeted for a certain number of hours that they have been working, and so I'm wondering why all of a sudden they're out of money.
I think Heather had the response to that.
And what's that?
Look in the minutes.
Right, so we can just keep going in circles here.
Well, I think the point is, we shouldn't just let this go by. I mean, we have staff in there that are employed by the town.
And there's no direction from us that any departments were short on their budget lines or wage lines.
Yeah, regardless if it's an elected board or not, they can't close down a major department
Doesn't the
without...
Board of Health, aren't they required to be operational regardless? And so if you have a Sharps program, you need to be able to accept the Sharps?
Or people leaving
Well, they can't,
Sharps
they
containers
locked.
outside the door?
They couldn't even put them in, it was locked.
She
They've
was
been
saying-
leaving them outside the
Outside
Outside
the
the
door.
door.
So what happens if a kid comes running into the hallway and grabs one of those buckets
I mean, that's just unconscionable, that you leave dirty needles and syringes out there
outside a door?
in a public building.
Well, they had a separate bin where you could slide things through, but they just closed the bin, locked it, and put a sign on it that said closed.
You're a public health guy, Charlie.
What's your
I mean, have you ever heard of something like this before?
If the Board of Health shuts its operation down, then the board members become, the board are responsible for providing the services of the community. I find this unfathomable. I have no clue why what happened has occurred. And because there's no dialogue, I have no way of understanding what happened.
I mean, if it was a budget issue, maybe you furlough part of the staff. How many staff members do they have in there?
Two?
Two. So you furlough part of the staff, or you do reduced hours, but, you know, you announce it, you publicize it, you keep the place open for certain hours, because, you know, business goes on, and public health obviously is important. Can we,
I guess I just find it amusing, maybe is maybe not the right word, but the push for the importance of that board and the push for more money in the budget, and then this happens without any warning. You know, if it, and I don't doubt the importance of the board, but it seems like there are some things that need to continue going on. That's why it's so important, and to just shut it down like that
Was
doesn't
it-
seem right.
sorry, was there any contact information on the notice that was posted on the Board of Health?
Don't believe so. Charlie, do you
Oh,
recall
I don't
contact
recall
information? It
it,
just said closed furlough due to
Well-
lack of funding.
And I suggested to you
dates.
that you refer everybody to the chairman of the Board of Health to call the chairman, because they're responsible for that operation.
I mean, if it's a point, if they're trying to make a point in regards to the, you know, the no vote at the town meeting, there's a different way to do it. This is not it.
I forgot I took that picture last week. It was on the door, it says Board of Health office closed February 16th through the 23rd. Staff furloughed due to lack of funding. Board of Health regrets any inconvenience. I mean, that's, my opinion, is very unprofessional to even put that on there. Staff furloughed due to lack of funding. I don't think that's the case. I think it's the inappropriate scheduling. If there's two people, they can keep the place open, even if it's a truncated schedule.
Well, they're an autonomous board. We don't have any oversight of them directly. It really comes down to the voters of the town.
Or the state.
The state comes in when they find that people are put in jeopardy, and I didn't hear that.
Well, needles and
Leaving
syringes.
needles in the hallway doesn't put
That's a
anybody in
sa-
jeopardy?
That is a safety issue right there.
Yes, and that safety issue could be addressed some other way than the state coming in. I mean, it's just like bringing an M1 tank in to deal with the, you know, what I think we should do, this is my opinion, is we should send a memo to the Board of Health asking them to attend our next meeting and explain to us what occurred, especially seeing we don't even have minutes to go back on as to what they voted.
And if they would have communicated beforehand, maybe we could have assisted them with something, or maybe we could have offered some kind of remedy.
Solution?
Or solution, or suggesting keeping one person there and letting the other one get furloughed,
I
or,
don't understand the fact that we're in February. Their budget is not exhausted.
Right.
right.
If
Yeah.
we were in June and this came up, we could say, okay, they really did run out of money.
Right.
But we're in February. We know that they have funding to go from March to June.
But again, they
When they
have,
were here at their last update,
yeah,
did we talk about their budget?
I remember, we did
They
at the town
wanted an
meeting.
article.
Yeah, I remember that, but
And they got the article.
Yeah.
But there wasn't any talk at that last update that said, if we don't get it, this is what's going to happen.
No?
No, nothing I can recall.
But the thing is, there's 2 employees and there's Board of Health officials. If one of those sits in there for a certain period of time, it's
That's their
announced.
job.
It's announced, here's what we're going to do for this week ahead of time, publicize it. That's a lot different than shutting the door and putting a notice saying, we don't have the money, sorry, figure it out.
I move that we invite the Board of Health to the next Board of Selectmen's meeting for clarification of why they did what they did.
And I'll second that.
So there's a motion on the floor to invite the Board of Health to our next Board of Select meeting to discuss the furlough sign and closing of the office.
And if Heather could give them all of our concerns that we discussed. Pardon?
I missed
She's
your,
acting up
sorry.
again out there.
I missed what you said. If Heather could what?
Let them know all our concerns that we
Yes.
discussed, so that when they come, they'll be able to address them, rather than brand new.
So there's a motion on the floor. There's a second. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
That's all I have.
That's all you got? Okay. Are there any select board reports? I did not go to school committee last night. I know busing was a hot topic. I think it's going to be continued to the next meeting, which is an extra
Liz,
meeting.
you have a
Mrs.
member of the
Ahart,
school
do you know when
committee
the
with
next
you.
meeting is to discuss busing issues?
On the 10th,
March 10th.
March 10th at 7 o'clock in the North Library.
Okay.
Will be only transportation. Tammy Walunas, 298 College Highway. At last night's North School Committee meeting, hot topic was transportation, and they are going to have an extra North School Committee meeting on March 10th at 7 o'clock in the North Library.
Okay. Thank you.
I think Virginia has something.
Go ahead, Mrs. Ahart.
Virginia Ahart, 27 Fulmer Road, a fairly new school committee member. They are looking for more information, and the new vice principal will be actually checking the number of children who are getting on and off the buses, so that they will have facts, especially about if there's overcrowding and things like that.
Okay. I think they did that in the beginning of the year, the end of last year. There was bus counts at the beginning of the day and end of the day, so that sounds reasonable.
They know the figures that the bus company gives, but they might
The
not
actual numbers may be
be
different.
the actual numbers. And
Okay.
so we're waiting for those figures.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Mrs. Lunas. I didn't make it. I knew it was going to be a
Tammy Walunas.
hot topic.
The reason they're doing new counts is because they cut a bus.
Right, we know
Okay.
that.
All right, I
know
wasn't
that.
sure the way you were talking.
Yeah, we're talking the
saying
same
last
thing.
year, 'cause
No,
there's
no.
not the
No,
same
I was just
number.
referring to the vice principal doing the counts, and that had happened in the past. And what do you want to talk about, the what?
Did we ask to be brought up at the school committee, the thought of vocational school in
Switching to
Westfield
Westfield.
versus Smith because of the cost difference the gentleman was bringing up, and whether that was apples to apples?
Well, that did come up. And I mentioned the difference in the cost.
Yeah.
And because I understood that there was some kind of a more or less agreement that with Smith, they said there is none. It's the fact that a few years ago, Westfield didn't compare that favorably with Smith. But in fact, now it is the transportation. And it had gotten to where, with only a few students going down to Westfield previously, but it's basically up to students
Right.
at this point to decide where they want to go.
I think that there's a misnomer out there that you have to go to Smith. So rather than us publicizing, here are your two choices, you just assume you go to Smith, when in reality, if you want to go to Westfield Voc, it really is just a transportation issue.
And the It's quite a bit of difference in the funding.
Yeah.
However, they are, the superintendent did feel that the words they've gotten from Smith is that Smith will be less in their tuition next year.
That's a lot less to jump in 1 year, isn't it?
7,000, 8,000 difference, was it?
No, it's 70, is it 7,500 to go to Westfield? And,
No, it's 10,
Okay.
and it's 17.
okay, sorry.
But
6,000, 7,000.
Smith is going to be 16, at least they're looking at a tuition that is reduced by at least $1,000.
Do we have any negotiating power with Smith or Westfield on that?
I brought up that it was my understanding that there had been some kind of a contract with Smith that our students would go there. And he said, no, it's really a student choice. And if the student wants to go there, and maybe with the changes that Westfield has made, more students might want to look into some of their programs, but I don't know how you get that word out for them
Right.
to do that.
I wonder if you would see a more even split, because I can't imagine that the kids from Williamsburg or Haydenville or Goshen are going to want to drive to Westfield every day. But the kids in Southampton, for them, that's not a big, a big commute. It's probably closer,
Yeah.
maybe, than driving to Smith Folk. So,
Oh, yeah.
And I got to wonder if a lot of the kids from Easthampton go to Westfield, and is there a bus involved, and can it be a,
good questions. I
Sure.
don't know the answer.
I don't know. I know Easthampton has an in-house vocational program, and that was done to try to keep them from going
Going out,
out.
right?
I don't know anything more about it than that.
Okay.
but it sounds like a new school committee member, you're really getting involved, which is great.
Well, I'm learning.
But
Tammy?
At the last Board of Selectmen's meeting, you had asked me to address Craig Jurgensen, Dr. Jurgensen, with this,
Yep.
and I did. It is something that we are going to be talking about at our next meeting,
Right.
which is the March 7th, Monday night.
Okay.
And if they open it up to Westfield, it would only be to Southampton, not all of Hampshire Regional, because of the busing issues of having kids come all the way down.
But, so, when you say open it up, though, if somebody in Williamsburg decided they wanted to go to Westfield, what, Williamsburg would say no? I mean, or
I
would they
don't
do the
know
same
that.
thing that we say, is you're welcome to go, you just have to get yourself there?
I think the old policy used to be, unless Westfield had something different than Smith, you had to go to Smith.
Exactly.
Because it used to be,
That was the old, yeah.
they used to have it. I don't know if they still do, but
don't
I
think
think there
they
was
do.
HVAC or
Well, but
something
Westfield has different curriculum now.
right now, but back
They're
then it wasn't.
comparable now. They weren't always. Now
Right.
they're comparable.
Yeah.
All those many years that I lived at Hampshire Regional, I don't think there was ever any official kind of thing told to the students where they had to go if they wanted to go to a Voc school. The fact was, yes, one, Westfield did not have all of the programs, and they were not as strong. And that was probably kind of the feeling. But yes, I think there is something out there. And students forget that even over in Holyoke, there's Dean Voc, and they have some programs that are by far, I can tell you, the culinary arts is by far better than either Westfield's or Smith's.
Right.
I've been to some of their things that the students have done there, and they're top, and you read about them. They win prizes for their culinary arts, but we don't have students.
Right,
But if they wanted to, they certainly could.
right.
There's nothing to stop them.
Except the transportation again.
Except the
yeah.
transportation.
Transportation.
Right. So it'll be interesting to revisit and see what happens.
Yeah.
Any other reports?
Well, we were all there at the combined PPPB and the Board of Selectmen meeting last week to go over the policies and procedures.
Did you finish it?
Yes, we finished it.
Okay.
And Jackie was also there with us, so the four of us were there. So it's finished, and they're going to send a final draft around to the committees. I went to the Greenway Negotiating Committee. That's all I can really say is it's going, continuing on, so the committee's still in full force and effect. And a non-existent committee that I keep wanting to bring up is the Safety Complex Committee. We're in February already, and I think we need to decide what to do, put it into action and get a planning committee together.
Are you making
So
a
I'd like
motion
to make a motion that we reinstitute a safety complex committee so that we can study the safety complex, knowing what we know from the voters and the costs that we had last time around.
There's a motion on the table by John to reinstate the Safety Complex Committee.
I thought, John, you wanted to put that on for March 8th for further discussion. That's the,
Is that where it is now?
That's the sheet it's on, yes.
Okay, I remember we said put it on the agenda, so March 8th,
And then just keep in mind, too, that the fire and ambulance operational organizational study should be back to the board on March 31st, which although it's not going to tell you anything about the feasibility of the building, because we already know that,
Yep.
it will tell you what their recommendations are for the needs of the town, financing and stuff like that, so that might be helpful to such a committee if it were in existence.
oh, definitely be helpful. I don't think we should wait for that.
I don't have a problem with tonight voting to reestablish the committee, because it's going to take a few weeks to get people to submit their interest and all
Yep.
that anyways. So I'll second your motion if you want to do that.
Yeah, I'd like to do that. And I'm going to further it. I've got a lot of experience in mass construction law, so I'd like to be one of the representatives from the select board. And Charlie, I know you played a big part in the last one, so I don't know if your interest is still there.
My interests are still there.
So there's a motion on the floor to reinstate the Safety Complex Committee by John, a second by Charlie. All those in favor?
Aye.
Are you going to be later coming up with the charge for the committee and a number of members for said committee?
How many were on the last one?
Well, I think that's less of an issue. There was
Oh,
probably
okay, I
10.
thought you wanted to go there.
Yeah.
And I don't think we need.
Want to talk about that on the
No,
8th?
no.
Yeah, that's what I
Let's
was
talk
thinking.
about that on the 8th.
Yeah, I think we need to think about it and come up with the right mix rather than a number, because that's the critical part. Yeah.
Okay. Any other reports? Departments, boards, committees? Anybody? Page 1. Open time for the public. Going once.
Well, I've got something, I don't know where to stick it. So I'm going to stick it right in the open time for the public. If I have to go over there, I will, but
Yeah,
it was,
just
I
go over
think
there,
you should
John.
go over there. I'm just kidding.
see, whatever the chair says, I'm willing to do it here, so. And actually, it was something we had talked about recently discovered. Remember when we gave the increases to all the folks for the raises? There were two people that I think that should have got a retroactive that weren't. And one of them talked to me when I saw him at the transfer station. One's Dave Bernier, and the other is Nick Slattery. He's a part-timer there. But they didn't get a retro where the other hourlies did because they're in the enterprise fund. And after talking to Randall, the enterprise fund is in the black, is doing well. And the amount of retro for these two people, $300 or so total, is a very small amount. And the amount is less of an issue to me as an issue of fairness. I think we should pay the retro for these two people out of the enterprise fund to let them know that they're part of
Why
the
didn't they
town.
get it to begin with?
Because I think the thought was the enterprise fund may not be in the black, and it was an enterprise fund, it wasn't a line item wage. So it was a little different. I know it was brought up two other, or three other people. One was the Water Commission. There was somebody there that didn't get the retro. Am I remembering that right?
No, the water department actually gave their employee a 2% increase at the beginning of the year, because as we've discussed, the enterprise funds They don't really operate like the general fund. We don't have the same oversight, we don't have the same interaction. Those budgets are voted in their entirety at annual town meeting for the total amount of money that can be expended in the wages, expenses, et cetera. Same thing goes for the transfer station. So I think one of the reasons that the transfer station did not give the retro pay, we've been in the red for the past 3 years. Although we might be in the black today, doesn't mean we're not going to be in the red on June 30th. There's a lot of huge concern that if we go in the red for a 4th year running for a enterprise fund, it's going to be extremely problematic. So I know this seems silly, and as we went through the prior conversation with $11,000 savings for net solar meeting credits, this is the town where when we save $20, we literally do a cartwheel because we don't have the money to expend. And when it comes to the enterprise funds, they're independently operating. So if they feel that they're going to go in the red for something, I understand the concept of fairness, but if we can't do it because we will overspend a budget, that's a problem.
Yeah, when I talked to Randall, he said because the way he's managing it stricter, they're in the black now. And I guess if it came towards the end of the year and we were short by $300-400, we could always go to the reserve fund, ask for a request, but
But you can't. The reserve fund is the general, see, that's the problem. The free cash reserve fund, those cannot leave to go into an
okay,
enterprise
so
fund.
let me back up. If the enterprise fund is in the red, $300-400, and it means that these two people are treated equally with the rest of them, I'm okay with that. I guess that's my thought here. I don't think we should single out two people for that.
Is Randall writing his budget for for this fund, including the 2% or not including the 2%?
He's writing whatever increases were given, he's including it. And I think he said he was going to give you something to put on the warrant tonight for those two people. Did he do that? Yeah, it should have been included.
It wouldn't be to me.
the
It would
payroll.
go in the payroll piece.
It's in the, he was going to put it in the payroll warrant for tonight, for those two people.
Okay.
But I guess the question is, how do you single out two people because of where they get the funding? It's not their fault where they get the funding.
So if you put this in open time for the public, can we still make a decision about it?
Sure,
He hasn't made a motion.
I'm just asking.
Discussion.
yeah.
I guess I'd like to talk to Randall about it. I mean, I totally see what Heather's point is. If you can't transfer money from the general fund to an enterprise, then I don't have any place saying, give them the money. In all fairness, I voted against my own 2% raise because my budget generally runs in the red, so.
But Randall already said, when I talked to him yesterday, that he's doing fine. He's got a lot of different things he's working on that have decreased the budget. And he felt it was fine to put it in there.
So you made a comment that he put something in the warrant.
Yeah.
Did he?
Oh, he said he was going to. I didn't,
Because I don't want to paw through all that just to try to find it.
that should be easy to find. So what are your thoughts in,
Get to him, let him.
yeah, I'd be glad, but what are your thoughts about it before I go pawing through, as you
Well,
say?
I agree with you, John, that I don't think it's fair for these two individuals. I understand Heather with the fact that it's an enterprise account that's been running in the red. I also don't think it's fair, and we've been trying to be fair across the board with everyone. The simple answer is, if he's already put it as part of the warrant for paying them, then it's a moot point because he's already done it.
No, I don't think he's done it yet. I don't think he's done it yet.
Well, then, that's the reason he's pawing through the paperwork.
I hate it when you use those technical terms.
Do you want to revisit this while you paw, and we can move forward?
Sure.
Okay, so we're going to move forward.
I knew there's a reason she moved me over here.
We have the Regional Housing Office opportunity. The Regional Housing Office is an opportunity to join South Hadley and other communities in looking into a feasibility of an RHO using DLTA funds. I don't know what those are, so I'll finish first. In the materials, there's a sample program from another part of the state and a description of what this would mean and entail and how it would help Heather. Go.
How would help Heather? It doesn't say help Heather.
Yeah.
So,
First, tell me what DLTA stands
sure, I
for.
want to say it's Divisional Local Transitional Assistance. It's
Oh,
funds that
yes.
come from the state over to PVPC to work on doing feasibility studies. We had done one a few years ago with City of Easthampton to look at the potential of having a shared conservation agent.
Oh, yeah, okay.
We use DLTA funds for things like that. So essentially what this is it was an idea that I had talked to Mike Sullivan about a while ago. We still have the issue where we don't have affordable housing or a certain percentage of it. I believe it needs to be at about 10%. Otherwise, folks can actually come in and bypass many of our regs in order to move forward with putting in affordable housing. It takes away a lot of control from the town itself. It, kind of restricts what we can say or not say, and pretty much if they want to come here, they can for whatever project they want to do. Going with an idea like this puts a lot more control back into the town's hands. The idea is we don't currently have a regional or even a local housing authority. Generally, if people come and they say, I need to look for affordable housing, I need help with this, or what have you, we send them down to the program over in Springfield. Yes, Charlie?
I thought we had a housing committee.
We have a Southampton Housing Authority, but they're a body of members who meet only. They're looking at ideas, but they actually do not do anything with affordable housing, provide any assistance or anything like that.
But wouldn't that be the first board that would review this?
Well, I think the first idea is to see if the Board of Selectmen, because this is the concept of regional services, and when we've had issues of regional services in the past, the Board of Selectmen has often been divided as to whether they'd wish to proceed moving forward or not. So yes, Charlie, I think they definitely would need to be brought up to speed. I do not see that they'd have any objection with this whatsoever. If the Board of Selectmen is happy to move forward with looking at just the study of this possibility, I'm more than happy to go to the Southampton Housing Authority's next meeting and present this to them. But they are simply, Charlie, right now more of an advisory board than anything else. They have no projects that they currently manage, although they're constantly working with CPC to look at the spending of the funds that we do have available for housing purposes. We do not have any current projects that are underway.
Well, as one of the selectmen, I have no problem with looking into this. I think the regional approach is going to be necessary for this town, but I don't want to usurp that committee.
My recommendation then would be, if the board is interested in proceeding to look at using DLTA funds to look at a study of doing a regional office, to simply vote to send this to the Southampton Housing Authority for their review, and if they too are on the same page that this is a study we should proceed with, that we then proceed.
I'll make that as a motion.
You want me to repeat that again?
No, Liz got it all.
Oh, okay, Liz?
There's a motion on the floor to proceed with the RHO opportunity after it's gone to the Southampton Housing Authority for approval. Made by Charlie. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So let's get back to the question about, is the warrant put in here? There is a warrant for Dave Bernier and Kevin Slattery, a total of $392.40 for retro.
So it's there.
It is.
So we don't need to make any action
Nope.
other than approving the warrant.
So we brought it up, and Randall has already
See?
committed to it, so we're
Done
good.
deal.
Okay. Next, we have a surplus declaration. We have a list of surplus items to dispose of at the fire station. This includes 6 computer towers, 3 printers, and 3 projectors. Once voted to dispose of, Heather can arrange for pickup and free disposal of the majority of the items. What about the other items?
We're going to have to work with Randall or another company to see what we can do, or even look at perhaps donating certain things. I don't know if anyone needs an overhead projector, but perhaps to the library.
Do they use those anymore?
I don't know. The school department does not. I've already talked
I
to
was
their
going to
IT.
say, we don't
Talking
think we
about the
have any
plastic-
overhead projectors.
Overhead projector.
You put the sheet
Smartboard
of
maybe,
paper
but-
on it and it throws it up on the,
Has a little
on the wall.
arm.
I have one in my office.
I don't want it.
It's,
Okay.
it's still there.
Can I assume the hard drives are being destroyed?
The hard drives have already been destroyed. However, the company we're working with, they are certified to do proper disposal if for some reason we haven't already disposed of the hard drives themselves.
Okay, thanks.
I move that we declare this surplus property.
Is there a second?
Second?
There's a motion on the floor to declare surplus from the fire station. All those in favor?
Aye.
Charlie, aye.
Aye. Next, These appointments don't have any paperwork with them, true?
They can. If you give me 5 seconds, I will send it over.
I
Sure
got
thing.
tons of paperwork that went on.
Oh, I don't have that.
You want to go into the warrant?
There's nothing to be signed, though.
Okay, so the first is an appointment of Alicia Nulf to the Board of Registrars. Her term would expire June 30th, 2017. The prior Board of Registrar has stepped down, and we need to fill the position prior to the next election to ensure a full Board of Registrars. Is there a motion to appoint Alicia Nulf to the Board of Registrars?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second, but I got a question.
Sure.
Something like that, Board of Registrars, has somebody looked at this application? I don't know, Alicia, or,
Doesn't the town clerk do that?
The town clerk has looked at it. It gets a lot more complicated because when you have a board of registrars, it's generally a 4-member board, and you actually have to balance out with Democrats and Republicans. And in today's day and age, we also have the party that is called unenrolled, which is, most people know is independent, not to be confused with other parties. I think it's American Independent or something they have these days. But therefore, what that means is you always have to have a balance. So if you have 1 Democratic, 1 Republican member, and 2 unenrolled, when you go to replace someone who was unenrolled previously, you can only replace them with an unenrolled person. You cannot have an uneven balance. You can't have 2 Democrats, a Republican, and an unenrolled person. Always has to balance. So that was one of the key things when finding a replacement, is someone has to be qualifying the notion of being unenrolled. The nice thing about the Board of Registrars is, in general, other than signing certification papers and the like, the role that they're most important for and always need to make sure that they remain available to do is in the event we ever have to have a recount, because they're in charge if that's the case.
so you're saying they verified this person is good to go?
It's the town clerk's recommendation to recommend this individual, so
Okay,
if the
I'm-
board wishes further information,
No,
it's up to them.
I'm good with that if she recommended it.
So there's a motion, a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next, we have the appointment of Marla Hank to the BayPAC. So Marla attends the BayPAC meetings on behalf of the Conservation Commission and the town, and it would be helpful if she was a voting member. So she goes, but she can't vote.
So moved.
So there's a motion on the floor by Charlie to appoint Marla Hank to the Barnes Aquifer,
Advisory.
what's the P? Barnes Protection Aquifer Committee. Does that sound right?
Second,
A second by John. All those in favor?
Aye.
Well,
aye.
usually after you say second, you say for discussion, so I was just waiting
I'm
patiently.
good.
Next, we have Agricultural Commission members. On Thursday, February 18th at 8 o'clock, an informational agricultural meeting was held on the second floor meeting room with various residents and the town administrator and administrative assistant to the town administrator. In accordance with the town bylaws, we have received interest to be appointed by 4 individuals in interest as alternates for 3. We need a motion to approve the following people. Charlie,
Can we take them separately, so because he can't vote on his own, so.
Sure, so we'll start with Kate Carl, whose term would expire June 30th, 2018, Claudia Lucas to expire June 30th, 2018, and Thomas Basista to expire on June 30th, 2019.
How about Kevin or Chris?
Well, it's crossed off on mine.
Okay.
So is there a motion to approve those 3 to the Agricultural Commission?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And I'll make a motion to appoint Charles Kanicki to the Agricultural Commission. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions?
Teach you to sit over
Say-
there.
Say you abstain. And then three, I'm sorry,
Alternates?
3
Alternates.
alternates, thank you. Marla Hank, Christopher Lucas, and Randall Kemp.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, we have PCFs. Oh,
PCFs.
hold on. Do these all have to be signed, these appointments, Heather? None of them have to be signed, so I can give this back to you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. We have a PCF for Eric Larson as a truck driver, equipment operator. This position replaces Lawrence Carney, who left about a year ago. It has been signed by the accountant, the PQB, and the finance committee. There's a copy of the letter, there's a copy of the PRF, there's a resume, everything you could have ever asked of a department head to submit to you when wanting to sign off on a PCF, without being asked.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Then you have a PCF for, I guess her name is Lise Lemlin, as a probationary firefighter, third rider EMT. There's an emergency and also a regular one, so that's to allow her to start and then to be hired appropriately.
I'll make a motion, we accept both of them. As long as they're filled
Second.
out. Yep.
There's a motion, a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Charlie, you voting?
Yeah, aye. Trying to keep our schedule on track.
There's
Bill Matthew Mitchell.
Yep, there's three. So there's one for an emergency hire of Matthew Mitchell as a new hire EMT, a regular PCF for a new hire EMT, and then a new standby and nighttime hourly rate call until June 30th, 2016. But so can I just ask, if he's a new hire, why wouldn't you just start the PCF at the right time? At the right wage?
Well, that
Why would you
rate
put
is
an old
only-
wage and then put a new, what, I don't
That
understand.
rate was only approved till the end of this fiscal year, so he's setting him up at the regular rate, then giving him the incremental at the end of the year, so there's no issue when you get to the end of the year, he says, that's what I was hired at,
I see.
so.
And did we, okay. All those in favor of signing the three PCFs for Matthew Mitchell?
Aye.
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 I don't know that we had a motion, did we?
No.
Oh, sorry, is there a
I'll
motion
make
to
the
sign
motion.
three PCFs? There's
I'll
a-
second it.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Moving right along.
We have an application for Patricia Mack for a one-day beer and wine license for Conant Park on Saturday, July 9th.
Before you go to that.
Sure.
I've got one more on PCFs, library, Lisa Shea, circulation librarian.
Mine's crossed off.
It's going to be skipped over for this time. I talked to, I don't know if I was confused or what's going on, but it was my understanding from Art that the item was back on the Triple PB's agenda last Thursday because it had been resubmitted for a change of pay, but upon all the documents that was handed to me by the Finance Committee last night, that was not one of them. When I followed up with Mike, the chair of the Finance Committee today, he said at the last meeting that he had, it was actually withdrawn so that it could be resubmitted. So I think the paperwork didn't, I don't know if the paperwork made it from the personnel to the FinCom on that individual.
So that's why we're not there. Okay. So next, we have an application for Patricia Mack for a one-day beer and wine license for Conant Park Pavilion on Saturday, July 9th from 10 to 6 for a celebratory picnic. Everything has been submitted. Would anyone like a motion to sign the one-day?
Move to sign the one day.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have a Code Red service agreement. The contract date's revised to allow for alignment with the EMPG grant. Heather, can you explain?
Oh, the Code Red. So the Code Red application we had signed last year was a 3-year agreement in which it always says pending or contingent upon appropriation. We have been doing the EMPG grant last year, the prior fiscal year when we did the EMPG grant, emergency management something grant. It's something that was filed initially by the fire chief, then was filed by Emergency Management Director Don Snyder. This grant actually last year had paid for the entire Code Red program because we had not actually applied for the EMPG grant the year before, and we were given a double year's funding for it. It only, I think they cover about 2,500 or something of change for the actual grant. The cost of the service based on our population is 3,900 annually, and that's full services, no limitations on anything. One of the reasons you're seeing a new agreement for this is simply the fact that we needed it to line up more appropriately with the fiscal year to comply with the EMPG grant requirements. So nothing has changed. It's the same application, same agreement as last year, simply just changing the dates of the grant so it's in line with the EMPG state grant requirements.
Is there a motion to sign the Code Red service agreement?
I move. Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, we have the warrant for the annual town caucus. Which is on March, I gotta read this whole thing. Okay, hold on.
What day?
She takes a good stiff drink before she reads it.
In the name of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, you are hereby directed to notify and warn the inhabitants of the town of Southampton qualified to vote in elections and town affairs to meet at the Town Hall, first floor meeting room, 210 College Highway, in said Southampton at 7:00 p.m. on Tuesday, March 15th for the following purposes. A, to select a chairman to serve at the caucus. B, to elect a clerk to record the minutes of the caucus. C, to nominate candidates for election at the annual town election Monday, May 2nd, 2016 for the following offices. Moderator for 1 year, Selectman 1 for 3 years, Almoner 1 for 4 years, Board of Assessor 1 for 3 years, Board of Health 1 for 3 years, Cemetery Commissioner 1 for 3 years, Constable 1 for 2 years, County Councilor 1 for 3 years, Finance Committee 2 for 3 years, Finance Committee 1 for 1 year, Library Trustees 4 for 3 years, Park Commission 1 for 5 years, Personnel Policy and Procedure Board 1 for 3 years, Planning Board 1 for 5 years, School Committee Hampshire Regional High School 1 for 3 years, School Committee Norris 1 for 3 years, School Committee Norris 1 for 1 year, Tree Warden 1 for 1 year, Water Commissioner 1 for 3 years. The polls will remain open until 9:00 p.m. And you are hereby directed to serve this warrant by posting up attested copies thereof at the Town Hall in said Southampton, and notices of the same usual places in said town 7 days at least before the time of holding said citizens' caucus. Hereby fail not and make due return of the warrant with your doings thereon to the town clerk at the time and place of aforesaid meeting. Given under our hands this 23rd date of February 2016. Would anyone like to make that motion? To sign the warrant for the annual town caucus?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it. What's the date on that?
The caucus is March 15th, 2016,
7 o'clock, right?
at 7 o'clock in this room.
Yes,
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's one of my favorite days of the year.
Caucus Day?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not asking.
It's just fun to see, like, just the old way of doing things, and people come, it's exciting.
That's what they're doing in Nevada right now, having a caucus.
Are they?
Yep. Republican caucus.
Next is payroll and bill warrants. I'm happy to read them, or someone else can.
If you don't want to read them, I'll be glad to.
Go for it.
Okay. Okay. Payroll warrant PD 16-31A for $133,473.95. Want to take them one at a time?
You can group them together.
Okay. Payroll warrant PD 16-33 for $42,972.79. Warrant W16-34 for $107,920.35. Warrant P16-35 for $244.50.
Did you mean 24,240?
$241,244.50.
And mine says something different, that's why I'm asking you.
What, yours, a big
Mine
difference?
says 24,000.
I've got 241, so I think we should probably check that. This is PD 1633. You have 35 there?
You have to have it.
I've got 33. See if she put multiples in here?
Yeah, all on top. They're all on top, all together there. no?
Altogether?
Yep, right there, see?
Oh, okay. 1631. $16.36. I don't have a 16.36. I'm not seeing it, are you?
No. Oh, yeah, right here. Payroll 16-30.
5, it says here. Is that 36?
Mhm.
So-
So let's
So we
hold
got a
off.
different, yeah, we got the right number, but a different warrant
You have
number.
wrong number, too.
Yeah, that should be 36, but is that the right number?
Yeah.
Okay, but we got the wrong warrant numbers, we got to hold off on these.
Well, you can,
We have an issue with one,
issue, I didn't do it.
with one of the warrants.
Yes.
Did you make up that list?
I did not.
Okay, then you didn't do it.
so I'm going to go with it 1636, because that's what's on here.
I simply am given the, I actually kind of cheat and have one of the members of the treasurer's office put that together for me, and whatever she gives me is what I type.
Okay, there's a number that's wrong.
Right.
So instead of P16-35, it's P16-36 for $241,244.50.
Yes. Is there a motion to sign?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is that you or no? That just needs an extra
Charlie.
signature.
$1 million check.
Can't keep getting this
This
money.
needs Charlie's signature.
Just that one, please go in there.
I'll pass that down. Thank you.
That goes in here. That's all done. Next, we have the approval of minutes from December 5th. Has everyone had a chance to read these minutes? Before I read the dates?
Charlie, have you read the minutes?
Yep.
John?
Board of Selectmen minutes, yes.
Okay, so I would accept a motion to approve the minutes from December 15th, 2015, January 19th, 2016, January 26th, 2016, January 28th, 2016, and February 9th, 2016.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Our next Board of Selectmen meeting is March 8th and the 22nd. We have a dog hearing on March 8th, a cable ascertainment hearing on March 22nd, and the town caucus is on March 15th at 7 o'clock. For anybody interested in running for any of the positions that I previously read, you can still pull papers and have nomination forms filled out this week, but they need to be returned by March 1st. If you don't request papers and get them signed, you can be nominated at the caucus,
Especially if you're not there.
especially if you're not
If you're
there.
not there, it's guaranteed you're getting nominated.
The annual town election for those positions is on May 2nd, and the annual town meeting is on May 17th. We are going to be going into executive session. We will not be returning to open session. Under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 6, I would accept a motion to enter executive session by roll call vote.
Martin, aye.
Oh, Moulton, aye.
Kaneki, aye.
Thank you very much.